How long does it take to observe clinically significant improvement in our patients who take Adreno Distress Guard?
What an interesting question. How long does it take to experience the benefits of PERQUE Adreno Distress Guard? Now, I'm going to give the technical answer and then I'm going to give a personal answer. The technical answer is, let's, for sake of understanding, assume that at 0 activity in the adrenals, you're too low, and 100 is too high, and 50 is just right. So now tell me where you are between 0 and 100. Presumably you're deficient, because that's why you need adrenal support. But interestingly, you can become deficient because you lack adrenal hormone or because you're overstimulated for too long and exhausted. And so that's why a doctor whose name was Gauss, a famous mathematician of the 19th century, he was interested in these questions of proportion and how do you know when to expect a result. And he came up with what we call a Gaussian distribution. And that's a fancy way of saying, tell me where you are between 0 and 100, more particularly since we expect you to be overstimulated and exhausted. Maybe your adrenals are running at 80 or 90, but they're exhausted and so they're not putting out what is being asked for by the pituitary. Remember, the pituitary is the master gland that tells the adrenals and the thyroid and the pancreas and the ovaries and testes what to do. So what if the pituitary is shouting, in essence, stimulating the adrenals, because the adrenals are not putting out enough hormone because they're exhausted from overstimulation? So that's why we at PERQUE designed and developed the first truly adaptogenic adrenal support formula. Adaptogenic is just a Greek word that means works with the body to rehabilitate, as opposed to all of the other adrenal products that I have seen are based on stimulating a gland on the premise that the gland is not doing its job, so stimulate it more. And if you talk to the endocrinologists who spend their entire lives studying the adrenal glands, what they'll tell you is that people need gentle support, adaptogenic support, rehabilitative support. And so the answer is rather complex because you need to know exactly where the person is and then how resilient their repair system, immune defense and repair, how resilient their neurohormones, how resilient their cytokine chemicals are. So from a technical point of view, it's a very complicated question about how long will it take for people to feel the difference. So now that I've given that long and rather confusing answer, the practical clinical answer is that if people are in need of adrenal support, adaptogenic adrenal support, within 2 weeks they will feel the difference. They'll begin getting more restorative sleep, their optimism will rise, their pessimism will fall, their sense of being able to concentrate and be productive will rise, their sense of being frazzled and verschimmelt will decline. So the answer is that within a couple of weeks, as quickly as just a couple of weeks, often after years or decades of being overstimulated and exhausted, within just a couple of weeks of adaptogenic rehabilitation, if the problem is a primary adrenal problem, you'll feel the difference. Let me say that a different way. If within 2 weeks the person is not substantially better, something else is needed, either repair type of polyphenolics with C-cleanse-based ascorbate, or recognition that the pituitary is talking to all the glands, and they may all actually be overstimulated and exhausted. So to be clinical for a moment, if you go for just a couple of weeks, the first bottle of adaptogenic Adreno Distress Guard should be sufficient, the first bottle, sufficient to know that you feel rehabilitation happening and you may need to continue, or by the end of the first bottle, more is needed. For example, do we need to include salt and soda baths, abdominal breathing, relaxation response, so that a deep brain overstimulation, this is like at the level of the pineal and the thalamus above, if you will, the pituitary, or telling the pituitary what to do, giving too much releasing factor to the pituitary, so the pituitary releases too much stimulating hormone. So not just the adrenals are overstimulated and exhausted, but also along with the adrenals, the thyroid, ovary, testes, pancreas. Often it's a pan-pituitary problem that comes to light as an adrenal problem. So if it's simply an exhausted adrenal gland, within 2 weeks, you'll feel the difference and rehabilitation is underway. If it's a pan-pituitary problem, then you need the full suite of be nice to yourself, rehabilitate your ability to engage the world as a friendly place rather than as a hostile place. And by the way, and I think it was Albert Einstein who said the fundamental question for all human beings is whether the universe is a friendly place or an unfriendly place. And he decided it was a friendly place. But remember, he played the violin. He used to like to go out sailing. He used to like to go on long walks with his lady friends. And oh, by the way, he was one of the smartest people around, but also one of the most human and humane, recognizing that in the right few words at the right time, you can make a difference. So thanks for asking the question. Too many of us have overstimulated and exhausted adrenal glands. If it's a simple adrenal problem, within a few weeks, people will notice substantially the benefits and improvements. But if it's a pan-pituitary problem, now you have an opportunity to get in with the full LRA program, more even than just the PERQUE Adreno Distress Guard.